should. The president first suggested that he barely heard the chants at the rally and that he quickly moved on, neither of which is true. Then he told reporters he was not happy with the chants and disagreed with the crowd. But then today, he takes another direction, tweeting, "As you can see, I did nothing to lead people on, nor was I particularly happy with their chant. Just a very big and patriotic crowd. They love the USA." So that's the new position of the president, at least today. People who chant about kicking a Democratic congresswoman out of the country are patriotic and who love the USA. One of those 4 women of color in Congress targeted by the president's racist tweets and comments is New York Democrat Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And she held a town hall on immigration in Queens today. And someone asked her if she believed the president when he said he did not egg that crowd on.
Do you think he led them on? He said this morning he did not lead them on.
He absolutely did. I think he absolutely did. He said, "Oh, I stopped it immediately. Roll the tape." He didn't. He kind of presided over the situation. He relished it. He took it in.
CNN's Polo Sandoval is here with us now. Polo, you were there inside that town hall today. I know Ocasio-Cortez said this White House rhetoric about immigration is not about immigration at all.
Immigration was front and center at this town hall, just back from Queens, Ana, as you just mentioned here. She's certainly received a warm welcome, and we think that a lot of that had to do with the controversial tweets from President Trump that targeted not only her, but 3 of her other Democratic colleagues. What we heard today from the freshman Democratic lawmaker here were a lot of things that we've heard before, calling for the impeachment of President Trump, calling to abolish not just Immigration and Customs Enforcement, but his parent agency, the Department of Homeland Security altogether. But then we also heard from Ocasio-Cortez a form of looking ahead here, especially as she's expected to meet with Democratic House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. She addressed what is certainly no big secret here, which is some tensions between established Democrats and perhaps some of the more progressive lawmakers here. So I asked Ocasio-Cortez myself exactly what she expects to bring to the table during this expected meeting with the most powerful Democrat on the Hill. And here's what she said.
The Progressive Caucus is one of the largest caucuses in the Democratic Party. And so, I think overall it's just to have a more open-ended conversation and see what we can do to come together on strategy. And certainly immigration, I think, is part of that conversation.
And that has really been a source of a lot of the tension between some of the progressives among Democrats and some of the more established Democrats here on it. So it will be interesting to see exactly what comes out of this meeting that's scheduled, hopefully in the coming days here, between Ocasio-Cortez and the Speaker of the House here, because, of course, it is certainly no big secret that her no vote on this House border funding bill was certainly led to a bit of tension between her fellow Democrats. Yeah. So when asked today what she would like to see, what would potentially lead to a yes, she said she would like to see a clean spending bill that focuses really on the humanitarian aspects of what's happening on the southern border and not necessarily some of the other border security provisions that Republicans would like to see in this legislation. So again, what we're seeing here from some of these progressives like Alexandria Cortez and the rest of her so-called squad, they certainly are digging their heels in when it comes to some of that legislation. And any other bill that comes their way, they wanted to just focus on the humanitarian aspects of things.
Got it. All right. Polo Sandoval, thank you.
Thank you so much, Tom.
Let's speak now with Nayyera. She's a Democratic strategist and former White House senior director in the Obama administration, and CNN political commentator Alice Stewart, who's a Republican strategist. Alice, I want to start with this tweet from conservative radio host Hugh Hewitt. He notes, "Send her back is a nativist, terrible chant, also electoral suicide," he writes. "There are more than 400,000 naturalized residents in Pennsylvania, with 200,000 more in Michigan." Hewitt points out that there was such a small margin by which Trump won Michigan, just 11,000 votes, Pennsylvania, just 44,000 votes. Alice, do you see the president taking that into consideration?
I sure hope so. I agree with you, and I've said this from the very beginning. We do not need "send her back" to be the new "lock her up." It's completely wrong. If we want to make this about policy and we want to make this about politics, which it is, then let's say vote her out. Vote her out of office. Let's have a debate on the policies where we disagree because they are big and they are stark and they are important, and let's look at those issues as opposed to what we're getting sidetracked with, because the president has mentioned this repeatedly, and this is where we need to put the focus on the differences in the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, which the 4 congresswomen are now really leading the Democratic Party, and we need to have conversations on where they are far to the left on socialism, on Green New Deal, on Medicare for all, on free college tuition. Let's have a conversation on those policies, and that will get us back on track.
Well, those 4 women aren't necessarily leading the Democratic Party, although the president would like to make them out to be the leaders of the Democratic Party. They do have influence, though, Nayyera, and I'm wondering if Democrats are paying enough attention to possible traction Trump may be getting with his criticism of the Squad, even though he's misquoting them and he's spreading obviously racist tropes. Could he be firing up his base and at the same time planting some doubts with perhaps moderate Democrats to make this a winning strategy?
Well, Donald Trump has done a very effective job of conflating 2 different things. We have on one hand, the cultural history of the United States that we're still wrestling with when it comes to understanding racism and what the modern forms of racism are, systemic racism and social justice movements. And he's conflating that with a 270 electoral college vote strategy. The combination of the 2, as we see, is bringing out some very ugly things in the United States. And unfortunately, it's not just up to Democrats, registered Democrats, or even the candidates to solve that problem. That is a day-to-day in our own communities. How do we deal with the people who are saying, send her back, to average citizens on the street or people on the street who are contributing members of American society? Now, Michelle Obama became famous during the Trump campaign for a particular moment in which she said, when they go low, we go high. Is that tone going to prevail? Certainly, the Democratic primary candidates are offering a variety of positive visions for America, but they're not really being met with much on the Republican side of the aisle. You only had 4 Republicans who voted to condemn Donald Trump's tweets. So that, unfortunately, is setting it up where Democrats are now the party of rational, reasonable, American ideology and a variety of throughout the spectrum of American ideology. And the Republicans in office right now are the nativists. They're turning out to be the racist party.
Before you respond, Alice, let me get back to Nayyera for just a minute, because there is a break between Nancy Pelosi and the Squad. We had seen all of the back and forth between those 2 in public prior to the president's racist tweets. We know now AOC is set to meet with Nancy Pelosi in this next week. How do you see that going? Because Pelosi has tended to downplay the influence of these 4 congresswomen. Does she need to be careful here?
Pelosi was actually the original progressive, so I worked for her back in the day when she first became leader, and I'm a millennial, so I understand the gap that they're trying to bridge right now. Pelosi was one of the first people to come out for gay rights. She's always identified as a progressive when it comes to social justice issues. What she's trying to wrangle right now is that you have the Squad who are calling for impeachment, but only about 90 people in her coalition have officially come out for it. That's still 200-something votes that they have to come together from districts that are kind of purple. They're not entirely blue yet. So that's a matter of strategy, and I appreciate that AOC mentioned that they're going to work on that together, and it's probably better that this is coming out now rather than in the general election.
Alice, I want to look at a tweet from this morning. The president quoted a woman named Katie Hopkins, who proposed a campaign slogan for him, "Don't love it, leave it." Katie Hopkins is a right-wing British commentator who has said the synagogue's rabbi was the person to blame for the synagogue massacre in Pittsburgh because of what she called his support for mass migration. She's also called for a final solution for Muslims in the UK. Alice, as the president continues to say these people are anti-Semitic and he talks about Israel being part of the conversation, how can he expect to be taken seriously on claims of defending against anti-Semitism if he's quoting this kind of person who has rhetoric like this?
That's actually a great question, because when he is talking about the 4 congresswomen and their anti-Semitic and some anti-American immigration policy statements, he's factually accurate on that. I can go down the list. Between
he
the
hasn't
4 of
been
them,
factually accurate in a lot of those statements. I mean, that's the truth.
Between the 4 of them, they have made comments to the effect of Americans who support Israel are all about the Benjamins. They have said that Israel, the people of Israel, hypnotize Americans. They have said that our detention camps are like concentration camps. They have said that brown and black people that are supportive of our immigration policies are a cog in the system. Those kind of comments are what the president is talking about. So for anyone to say He
But
is
why
taking
muddy the water with other things that aren't true? I mean, some of those that you listed are things that they have said. Some of them have apologized for some of those things, but the president keeps throwing additional things in there that aren't true and that are even more extreme. So I just want to make that clear for our viewers so that they aren't confused, Alice, but finish your thought.
No, you're right. It would be helpful if we would stay on using the factual statements that they have used when we're having this conversation, because there is plenty to choose from here. And we cannot continue to talk about what the president has said and what people talk about what he has said without mentioning the origin of this and where this comes from. And I think we can all take a page out of Ronald Reagan's playbook, thou shalt not speak ill will of another Republican, and same thing with a Democrat. Let's cool the temperatures, let's lower the temperature, and let's have a much better tone. I agree certainly with what Nayyera said about Michelle Obama. When they go low, we go high. I think both sides should do that.
Mm-hmm. There's something very fundamental going on here that we haven't really seen in recent American history, and that is it used to be, even on the conservative side of the aisle, and particularly among our veterans and military folks, they would say, I disagree with what you're saying, but I will fight for your right to say it. A patriotic chant used to be USA. It was not send her back.
Right.
This nativist tone that Donald Trump is picking up, he is indeed picking up from other parts of the world, like the Brexit folks, like the folks in Germany, who are trying to overturn liberal democracy.
Nayyera and Alice Stewart, ladies, thank you very much.